This is Ross Feingold on the Taiwan Hashtag program, coming to you from Taipei, Taiwan, and hosted by the Storm Media Group. And happy Mid-Autumn Festival to all our friends in Taiwan and around the world who are celebrating this important festival in Chinese culture. Today we'll be talking about latest developments in Taiwan's diplomacy. Big news this week was the visit to Taiwan of the Solomon Islands Foreign Minister and Deputy Foreign Minister. Why were they in Taipei? Well, as we talked about in previous shows, a lot of speculation that Solomon Islands would be de-recognizing the Republic of China on Taiwan and diplomatically recognizing the People's Republic of China in Beijing. Wouldn't be a new development as far as Taiwan's diplomacy over the course of President Tsai's term in office that began in May 2016. Beijing has persuaded several countries to de-recognize Taiwan and establish diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China, shrinking that number from 22 to 17, including the Vatican. Yes, Taiwan still has diplomatic relations with the Vatican, and again, that's also been subject to a lot of speculation, especially after the Vatican signed an agreement with China recently about the appointment of clergy in China, possibly a first step to formal diplomatic relations. But anyway, back to the Solomon Islands. Why was there so much speculation in recent weeks and months? Well, after an election earlier this year in the Solomon Islands, the government announced that it would be conducting a review of its foreign policy. Again, all of its foreign policy, so not just its policies towards Taiwan or China, but that was an important component of it. Solomon Islands receives financial aid, technical assistance, medical assistance, things of that nature from Taiwan, and in turn, Solomon Islands supports Taiwan's participation in international organizations. Periodically, when there's global organization events that Taiwan is excluded from attending, we'll see Solomon Islands and the other countries that have diplomatic relations with Taiwan speak up. They'll say Taiwan should be here. It's very important for Taiwan to have countries formally speak up, because some of the other countries that support Taiwan's participation, they'll say something like, we support Taiwan's participation in any organization that doesn't require statehood for membership. So it's a bit of a downgrading of Taiwan's status when even good friends like the United States or the European Union or Canada say things like that. But when it's countries that have formal diplomatic relations, they'll be more forceful, and they'll say Taiwan should be here as a full member, a normal member. They shouldn't be excluded from international organizations, whether it's the World Health Assembly, World Health Organization, or other UN-affiliated organizations. So Solomon Islands fulfills that role. But after the election, the new government said, we're reviewing all our foreign relations, whether it's with the United States, Australia, and China, and or Taiwan. Delegations from the Solomon Islands have visited China. They have visited other countries in Oceania to talk about those countries' relations with China and Taiwan. Of course, China is dangling the possibility of economic aid, and given the size of China's financial capability, typically in these situations, they will offer a lot more aid than Taiwan can afford to. That is no criticism of Taiwan. There's a limit to the resources that Taiwan can make available to provide aid to developing countries that maintain formal diplomatic relations, as much as those diplomatic relations are appreciated by the government in Taipei. This was in the past called checkbook diplomacy. And President Ma, the former President Ma Ying-jeou, when he was elected in 2008, said, I'm not going to get into checkbook diplomacy. My predecessor, Chen Shui-bian of the Democratic Progressive Party, used to do that. I'm not going to do that anymore. Of course, there was another side to that. China also engaged in what people called a diplomatic truce with Taiwan during President Ma's term in office from 2008 and the second term that he won in 2012, so 2008, 2016. China was not persuading countries to de-recognize Taiwan, the Republic of China, and establish relations with the People's Republic of China. After President Tsai took office in May 2016, that truce ended. So several countries have been persuaded by the People's Republic of China to switch recognition. Most recent one was a little over a year ago, El Salvador. Earlier there was Dominican Republic, Panama, and several others. So Solomon Islands kind of next in line, one could say, especially after the election. It gave the government, new government, an opportunity to say, oh, this is a good time to review the relations. So amid all this speculation, people expected an announcement was imminent because the government of the Solomon Islands said we're going to have a 100-day period and then we'll announce our decision. Foreign Minister, Deputy Foreign Minister came here. The Foreign Minister met with President Tsai. Of course, outwardly, the president of Taiwan, Ing-Wen, she said everything is well. Taiwan's foreign ministry, yes, outwardly, they're saying everything is well. But let's look at the specifics. During their visit on Monday evening of this past week here in Taipei, the two foreign ministers, Foreign Minister of Taiwan, Foreign Minister of Solomon Islands, they made statements to the media, and their statements talked about how good relations are. No mention of derecognition. Then they departed, and questions from the media were taken by the two deputy foreign ministers, so a deputy foreign minister from Taiwan and deputy foreign minister from the Solomon Islands. The answers to the questions from the deputy foreign minister of the Solomon Islands were a little more cautious. He didn't just come out and say that there's going to be no change. He kind of avoided directly addressing that question. It was more in the nature of things are okay for now, but I don't know what's going to happen in the future with our policy review. He certainly did not say it's off the table. He did not say that derecognition is off the table. So if you're Taiwan and you're looking at what the Solomon Islands deputy foreign minister said, you still have to be a little worried. And just within the last few hours, an interview was published by Australian media with the Solomon Islands Prime Minister. What did he say? Actually, he said the relationship with Taiwan is useless to us. That's pretty harsh words from a friend, from someone who diplomatically recognizes you and has accepted a lot of diplomatic aid from Taiwan in recent years. But that's what he said. It's useless. What did he mean by that? Well, he was probably thinking about the great power race for influence in the Pacific, in Oceania, and Australia puts a lot of pressure on Solomon Islands to reform certain things, end corruption, improve the execution of government policies, and to generally support Australian policies in the region. Of course, Australia considers this part of the world a place where it should naturally have a lot of influence, given the close proximity, given the amount of aid that Australia provides. And then there's also the United States element. The United States has also talked about having more influence in this part of the world. A lot of policymakers, politicians, members of Congress in the United States, very supportive of a more robust U.S. presence. Remember, the Trump administration talks about the Indo-Pacific. Pacific doesn't stop at the first island chain of Taiwan and Japan. The Pacific includes those Oceania countries like the Solomon Islands and several other countries that have formal diplomatic relations with the Republic of China on Taiwan and do not have diplomatic relations with China. China has been trying to expand its influence with the countries that it does have diplomatic relations with, whether through financial aid, military exchanges, even building military facilities on some of these islands, such as listening posts, things like that, and of course direct investment as well. Now, the United States and Australia, just like they do in other parts of Asia, and indeed around the world, they warn countries in Oceania about the debt trap. If you take too much projects, you borrow money from China, or you allow Chinese companies or the Chinese government through state-owned enterprises to purchase land or infrastructure assets in your countries. So Australia and the United States, they're now competing with China in this part of the world. But here we have the Solomon Islands Prime Minister saying, you know what, Australia, you come and give me a lot of pressure. You tell me what to do. China doesn't do that to its friends in Oceania. And I can't get that from Taiwan. Taiwan doesn't really help me stand up to pressure from Australia or the United States. Very concerning that he would say this so shortly after his foreign minister, deputy foreign minister, came here to Taipei to try and at least give a little bit of confidence to the government here in Taipei that a break in relations is not necessarily imminent. So if you get a chance, go read what the Solomon Islands Prime Minister said, warning that he doesn't think relations with Taiwan are useful to his country. Taiwan is useless to us, is what he said. A big, big warning. Taiwan, you need to be concerned, and most importantly, have a plan, right? Have to make the public here in Taiwan feel confident that if indeed Solomon Islands or other countries derecognize the Republic of China on Taiwan, that it's not the end of the world for Taiwan's international status, Taiwan's diplomacy, Taiwan's relationship with other countries, including major powers like the United States, obviously. We talked about in a previous program, John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, good friend to Taiwan, fired this week by Donald Trump. So there's a loss of a Taiwan friend in the White House. We'll be watching who replaces John Bolton. But there was an event in Taiwan this week involving the American Institute in Taiwan, de facto U.S. Embassy. It was about fake news and China's meddling in the media. We've looked for the red media here in Taiwan. A lot of speculation about that influence. What will China's role be in Taiwan's upcoming election? Are they going to try and change votes? So, a Assistant Secretary of State from the State Department in Washington, D.C. came here to Taiwan to speak at this event. Is it a breakthrough? No. This gentleman, his name is Scott Busby. He was here last October. In fact, he came last October for a very similar event, also talking about China's influence in the media, meddling in elections, things of that nature. So he's here again, not a breakthrough. If you're the Taiwan government, you might be a little disappointed with that because there was a lot of hope for the Taiwan Travel Act, which was passed by Congress and signed by President Trump not long ago, and that law was supposed to encourage higher level bilateral visits. But if we're having the same people at the same relatively junior status visit Taiwan from Washington, D.C., we're not seeing reciprocation. We're not seeing people from the Taiwan government getting that kind of high-level or public visit to Washington, D.C., you got to be a little bit disappointed in the pace of the implementation of the Taiwan Travel Act. So you had this conference, U.S. co-hosted with Taiwan. Taiwan government says that it's very important that 2 other countries were also co-hosts. Sweden's trade office in Taiwan, again, unofficial representation. Japan's office in Taiwan, again, unofficial representation, were also co-sponsors of this event. Not the first time that Japan has co-sponsored this kind of event with the American Institute in Taiwan and the government of Taiwan. The speaker from the Japanese side was the deputy representative. It was not the representative. So if you're the government of Taiwan, you got to be wondering, why didn't Japan allow its representative to speak? Is that Japan just trying to manage the sensitivities with China? It's a fair question to ask. And it's good to see a European country like Sweden taking a higher profile role in this kind of event with Taiwan. So good on you, Sweden. Thank you for doing that. Other significant news in Taiwan's diplomacy this week was that the Taiwan Coast Guard revealed that the Philippines Navy bypassed the Taiwan Strait a few weeks ago, and that the Taiwan Coast Guard provided assistance to the Philippine Navy ships as they went through the Taiwan Strait with regard to navigation, because it's a channel that they weren't very familiar with as they passed near the Penghu Islands off the coast of Taiwan. Is this a breakthrough in Philippines-Taiwan relations? Absolutely not. Let's not get too excited. They happen to do that because their original route through the western Pacific on the eastern seaboard of Taiwan wasn't possible due to inclement weather, according to the government of the Philippines. So they went through the Taiwan Strait. Also, within the last few days, a naval ship from the government of Canada, the Canadian Navy, went through the Taiwan Strait as well. Is this a breakthrough for Taiwan? Probably not. This ship was on duty off the coast of North Korea, involved in sanctions enforcement, and it was making its way to Southeast Asia as part of its deployment in the Indo-Pacific. So again, probably not a breakthrough vis-a-vis Taiwan's relations with Canada, but still it's good to see that other governments, other navies are treating the Taiwan Strait as an international waterway, and of course that's on the back of numerous such transits in recent months by the United States Navy. And again, John Bolton was a forceful advocate for that. So we'll be watching for whether or not the pace of those transits continue, and then whether or not the United Kingdom, which is recently criticized by China for its naval deployments in the South China Sea, does that, and France, which also transited the Taiwan Strait recently. So those are all diplomatic initiatives we'll be watching for. I'm Ross Feingold. You've been watching Taiwan Hashtag on the Storm Media Group.